and President Uhuru Kenyatta has declined to appoint a tribunal to investigate bribery allegations against Supreme Court Judge Justice Philip Tunoi, citing a pending judicial consideration on Justice Tunoi's retirement age. Well, the move comes just a day before the expiry of the 14 days within which the president is required by law to form a tribunal. A letter by the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service Joseph Kenywa to the Chief Justice Dr. Willie Mutunga says forming tribunal as recommended by the Judicial Service Commission would create a constitutional crisis. And we now want to speak to Martin Olo, who is a political analyst, to just give us some sort of insights into this particular development. If you can hear me, thank you very much for joining us on KTN News Desk. First, I'd like to get your reaction to this new development.
Thank you, Betty. I think that yes, we have a constitutional crisis. In fact, this very decision takes us to a constitutional crisis because there is nowhere in the Constitution where it is anticipated that once a recommendation is made for the establishment of a tribunal, the same can be declined. And now once this is declined and we are looking at the 14th day, what is to be done next? Does Justice Tunoi continue to sit? Certainly he can't sit. But what happens to him? What happens to his own right of being innocent until proved otherwise? Now that's the constitutional crisis that we are really staring in. Is it right to say that we need to wait for the appeal to decide whether he serves or not? Again, maybe that should be the decision that the tribunal should be given the opportunity to listen to and maybe come up with that very conclusion. So that right now what we have is a real crisis.
But then the other thing, what if when the issue about the retirement age consideration, what if it goes his way, then what happens?
You see, if you ask my opinion, Betty, I believe that all judges serving right now should retire at 70. But there's a contestation. I mean, the Justice Tunoi has contested, Justice Rawal has contested, but my belief is that actually the retirement age of judges under the new constitution is 70. It doesn't matter when one was appointed or not. Each of the judges took an independent decision to actually swear an oath to protect this very constitution. So this constitution says 70. It didn't have any saving clause. Now that said, the problem is that if the courts found that he was supposed to have retired at 70, then whether the tribunal is on or not, then that tribunal will be rendered, it will not be helpful because then it will be rendered unnecessary at that point. But if it finds that he is supposed to be serving, then certainly the business of the tribunal should go on. Now, at what point that decision is made is now the key constitutional issue, and perhaps that's why we are now in a crisis.
Right. Critics say that this could potentially give Justice Tunoi a sort of soft landing. What do you have to say about that?
You see, the Justice Tunoi has always all the cards in his hands. He can put in his resignation and take a walk and avoid all these things, but he can also stay on and fight. But what does the fight mean? And this is the problem with this crisis we are in. Justice Tunoi is being accused as an individual. Justice Tunoi sat on a bench. Now, the law or the constitution does not anticipate a situation where a bench can be accused, but it anticipates a situation where each judge can be accused individually. Now, if you go through this whole process, there's a problem. If you don't go through this process, there's a problem. So either way, we are doomed if we do, we are doomed if we don't.
But then, so what happens to, quote unquote, that justice actually, just speaking about it and the bribery allegations against him? So what happens to that if in case the retirement, he wins that case or doesn't even win that case? I mean, what happens to that particular case, going back to where we started from the get-go?
You see, what is at issue here, Betty, is that we will never get to know what the truth is around these corruption allegations. Did he or did he not take the 200 million? Now, if you ask him to say whether he took the 200 million, he'll tell you, if I took the 200 million, was I alone or was I with others? Now, that complicates life. Now, assuming he is let off the hook, then we'll never know whether this bribe was ever given or not. So the challenge we're having here is, where are we with the war on corruption? Do we lose this on technical and on grounds such as, look, can the Court of Appeal make that verdict or not? I think that we have an opportunity to hear from Justice Tunoi what the truth is. Now, of course, we are going to lose this in the process. And I'm sure by tomorrow, if he's a very wise man, he might be saying, look, I'm in an awkward position. Let me now resign. Once he resigns, that will be the end of this story.
So what does that say about our justice system, Martin?
The truth of the matter is that justice is itself accused. Once you start making allegations such as the ones that we're hearing before the highest court on the land, the Supreme Court, I think that we're in a bad place. Now, whether we ever get to hear the truth side of this story, the truth of the matter is that we are sitting on a problem. We are now telling ourselves that our justice system may not be as judicious as it is. It may not be dispensing justice as everybody would expect. That in fact, if this matter is not tried, the truth, the perception that remains is that in fact, justice is compromised. And that is the challenge. And that's why one would have wanted to see these whole accusations play out to the extent that it can be heard, it can be adjudicated, and one decision or the other is found. But without this being tried out, the allegations and the perceptions will stick, and the image of the judiciary will forever remain tainted.
Wow, thank you very much, Martin Olof, for the insights, the controversial developments, of course, in regards to the case against Justice Philip Tunoi.